And this is where we start sounding like racists. And I mean, for me, having done the research I've done, I'm just fine with being called a racist.
À-bas-le-ciel.
This is the kind of video where I really wonder if I'm going to manage to make it in less than 30 minutes. Deep, depressing, interesting topic. Really worth talking about, really worth thinking about. There's controversy at the moment, and they're the deeper, broader issues that'll still be meaningful to look back on 10 years from now. The controversy of the moment is people like Vegan Gains, Richard, who is of Afro-Canadian ancestry. He's partly black. His mother is apparently entirely white. We've seen his mother on camera. Richard has been supporting Tara McCarthy's YouTube channel. Okay? Tara and Cory McCarthy, I could say in some sense he is supportive of them. He is friendly towards them. He gave them a very gracious interview in which he did not challenge them on any of their racist political positions. Okay? And their political positions are racist. And you can see prior videos on this channel. Just search for the word McCarthy. Just go to the channel history, search for the word McCarthy, and you'll get a couple different videos where you get to see them, their face and their voices on camera, stating their racist political views. I'm not slandering them to say that. That is a completely reasonable summary of what their political position is. And if you don't want to take my word for it, if you don't want to watch the video on my channel, go to their website. It's something like Reality Calls. Reality Calls is the name they used to use for her channel. Now she just uses Tara McCarthy. And they have you click on a link at the top that says start here. They spell out for you as clearly as possible what their position is on the so-called white race and the future of the white race and so-called white genocide and their opposition to intermarriage between the races. Their political position, they support the idea of exiling all non-white people from the United States of America. If you do not describe that as racist, you must be using a very, very peculiar definition of what racism is or what it can be, what can be included in the category of racism.
Yeah, it was, I remember. It was like, don't make excuses for people who make excuses on Corys Racism.
We all know this intuitively. Yeah. I mean, everyone's driven through a really crap area and be like, oh, why this is a really crap area? And it's like, oh, it's populated by ethnics. Wonder why.
It's the kind of area that me and a friend of mine jokingly say, like, when you pass through these, if you end up in one, hold on to your wallet.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now. Yeah, don't make excuses for people who make excuses. Yeah, very strange thing to say. And it's like, it's so funny because the comment I'm making here is just completely rational. It's like, Cory is not a supremacist, which is my honest belief. I don't think he is a supremacist. He just acknowledges racial differences.
Yeah, like we all intuitively know that there are certain groups of people who have a higher crime rate, who are shit at doing anything, who can't turn up on time to places, who are extremely unreliable and make mistakes all the time and expect to get bailed out for it. But yet we're told that to have this pattern recognition ability is to create a stereotype, and creating a stereotype is wrong and evil and you shouldn't do that.
He just acknowledges racial differences. He doesn't believe one race is generally superior, and these are all things that the guy has told me personally. He just thinks there are suppressed truths about race that are worth being aware of in terms of how we organize society.
Now, I'm not advocating, like I said, I'm not advocating we go over to any other country and wipe these people out. Now, we have conquered in the past, and that is because we came in and we were able to,
Because we were technologically superior.
Exactly.
As a result of being intellectually superior.
He just acknowledges racial differences. He doesn't believe one race is generally superior.
Exactly.
As a result of being intellectually superior.
He's putting it up here trying to make it look like I'm defending racism, which, I'm not a racist.
If you do not describe that as racist, you must be using a very, very peculiar definition of what racism is or what it can be, what can be included in the category of racism. And Cory does. Cory does try to define racism so narrowly that he can't be included as a racist. I noticed that his girlfriend just much more openly says she doesn't care if people call her a racist, which she is. So thank you, Tara. That's gracious. I'm glad you don't mind. I'm glad I have your permission to call you a racist. Tara, you're a racist. So, look, two of my recent videos stated contrasting facts or contrasting opinions, contrasting perspectives on Vegan Gains on Richard. About 4 videos ago, I have a long video. It's 45 minutes long, primarily talking about Gary Yourofsky, but not exclusively. It's 45 minutes, so I cover a bunch of topics. In that video, I give Richard praise, but it's very specific praise. I say that Richard Vegan Gaines is the kind of guy who can carefully research a video about serious medical condition, heart disease, cancer, atherosclerosis, and can present well-researched, compelling facts about that disease in a way that's still entertaining, and that's great. And I think Richard does compare very positively to someone like Gary Yourofsky. If I have to choose between Richard and Gary Yourofsky as leaders in veganism, Richard is the better candidate. By far, he's the better voice for the past, present, and future of this movement. Bit eccentric. No shade, though. So, I did give him praise there that was completely sincere, and I still stand by that praise. So then a couple of videos later, I have a much shorter video where I'm mostly talking about this kid, Ask Yourself, and Cory McCarthy and Tara McCarthy and the racism on that camp. And I say really in passing, very, very briefly, that I'm shocked at what an idiot Richard has been in this affair, which is also completely sincere, and I completely stand by it. Now, there's no real epistemological or ontological argument to be dealt with here. When Richard sits down to make a video about a medical condition, about any medical claim, he researches the hell out of it. He claims he spends at least 20 hours per video on that type of video, whether it's about weightlifting, weight loss, fitness, or something like latest cancer research. He is putting in more than 20 hours of hard, careful research and actually checking and contrasting multiple peer-reviewed sources. Do you think Richard did that in considering or evaluating or establishing the political position of Tara McCarthy before he appeared on her show? No. Do you think Richard did that level of research before he decided to support or sympathize with Cory McCarthy, whom I would consider a white supremacist and a racist? No. Do you think Richard put that level of research into any of his recently adopted political positions that basically flirt with the alt-right? I can remember a time when Richard described himself as a socialist or something like leaned towards socialism. And within the last year, we've seen him adopting more and more positions that are conservative, shall we say, and definitely flirting with the alt-right, the far right, very most obviously in his interview, this long interview he gives with Tara McCarthy. Again, I would say no. I don't think that Richard has invested time in researching, understanding any of his political positions in the same way he does his health science positions, right? I don't think he regards political science as a science that demands the same level of rigor that he invests in the medical sciences. And to some extent, I can say, fair enough. But I really represent political science within veganism. I really am the kind of person who says, hey, can't we all answer to a higher standard of rigor when making claims, whether it's claims about what is effective activism or claims about, the contrast between different political approaches to lobbying government, courting public opinion, pursuing the future of veganism as a movement, or if I'm sitting there looking at somebody like Tara McCarthy, Cory McCarthy, and so on, and I'm asking Richard, how can you possibly attach your name to this bandwagon? These people openly oppose, in their terms, they're terrified about it. I mean, reading off the front page of their website here, they're terrified about the quote-unquote white genocide. They're terrified of so-called mongrel races emerging from white people interbreeding with black people. Richard, that's exactly your family. Richard's mother, we've seen on camera, is white. His father, ipso facto, is black. In many ways, Richard, these people openly espouse a political philosophy that demonizes you and that openly says they want to have political programs in place to exile you from Canada and the United States, to kick you out of the country. Now, I guess to give credit to Tara, because again, I did do some research here, Tara insists that she wants to use only nonviolent methods when possible. So she doesn't want to actually kill people to drive them out of Canada, the United States. Now, they also insist by a technical definition that they are not white supremacists. They're just white exclusivists. Now, if you have a golf club, if you have a country club where people play golf and play tennis, and it's whites only, it's white exclusive, is there any argument that that is not white supremacist? I mean, maybe if you go there and talk to the guy who works at the front door and say, well, look, this country club, this golf club, you only admit white people to play golf and play tennis here. So what, do you think white people are better than people? It's possible he's going to answer you, oh, no. We're all equal. We're all perfectly equal. In fact, every ethnic group has their own wonderful gifts and, unique cultural heritage. However, his job as a doorman is to kick anyone out and not let anyone in who's not white, unless, I guess, they're working in the kitchen, right? There's no meaningful debate to be had in this context. If you're talking about within the United States of America, between this bizarre program that Cory and Tara McCarthy represent, they call it themselves white nationalism. That's what they say they represent. Okay, there's no meaningful distinction drawn between that and white supremacism proper. There's no meaningful definition of the word racism that would exclude these people as non-racist. Now, does that mean that Vegan Gains, Richard, should not talk to them at all? No. I don't really think that cold silence is necessarily the best way to treat these people. I myself have engaged with Cory. I've talked to him in the past. I have videos here where I present Cory's perspective, sound clips of him stating his opinions in favor of slavery, genocide, colonialism, his shockingly racist opinions in his own terms, where I don't misrepresent him at all. And I have videos responding to him and inviting him to discuss this or reconsider it or what have you. So I myself have engaged these people. However, I did so critically. I did so in a way that made it very clear that I'm hostile to their fundamental assumptions about politics and the world. And everyone understood that, despite the fact that I'm a white male with a bald-shaven head, and it really would be pretty easy for people to mistakenly assume that I'm on the other side of that equation. And I'm not. Richard, if he had given an interview to Tara in which he was cross-examining her or really challenging her or really saying to her, look, this is over the line, how can you believe in these things or how can you support? That would be very different. I did listen to their entire discussion. It was quite boring to me, so I didn't pay attention to every minute of it, to keep it real. But I don't remember any such conflict that for even half a second in that whole interview. Instead, I think it was clear to everyone that Vegan Gains was cozying up to the alt-right, and he was giving a more than gracious, very flattering interview to Tara McCarthy, despite what we have to assume is a pretty deep ethical rift between them. Now, is the explanation that Vegan Gains is an idiot? I don't think so. I think the explanation is the contrast I've already mentioned between the level of effort and energy and focus that he puts into researching and talking about medical science, health science, fitness, etc., and the lack of focus, the lack of rigor, the lack of seriousness with which he has been indulging in politics. He's been playing politics like a dilettante, whereas, he plays within the arena of medical science, weightlifting, and fitness like a pro. I doubt he'd even dispute that, And look, keeping all the real, a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel that politics is a hobby. It's something they do for fun. It's something to do to relax. Whereas their real work, their real job, what they really care about and take seriously is something else. Again, it's not necessarily insincere. It's not necessarily manipulative. But very often I do see people who simply fail to treat politics with the seriousness that it deserves. And in this case, the outcome is, frankly, I think people like Richard, people like Vegan Gains, people like Ask Yourself, they have made fools of themselves. It's unbelievable to me that Ask Yourself, I don't think he's especially intelligent. How did he put himself in the position of arguing that Cory McCarthy is not a racist? Look at the front page of Cory McCarthy's website. Click on the Start Here tab. Read the way he describes his own political position. And this kid, Ask Yourself, And again, one of the leitmotifs I've come back to again, there's a difference between being rational and being reasonable. Maybe you can come up with some argument where you define the word racist so narrowly that you feel you're in the right to make this claim. Maybe you can define white supremacist so precisely that this guy doesn't fall into it. Okay, and maybe you get on an ego trip because you feel that is eminently rational and logical. But is it reasonable?
It's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow when you realize that people are born with a genetic cap on their IQ.
Yeah.
You know, some people who are born, they're never going to have an IQ higher than 85.
Yeah,
whatever you do, treat them like a prince, and they will not have an IQ.
And the thing about that is that so, you know, I know you can't help being born in a specific country with a specific, you know, a specific race or a specific IQ or whatever, you know, but the thing is like, let's say you're born with an 85 IQ, just like somebody who's born with a 2-inch dick. That's like, I'm sorry, you got the shit of the stick. I mean, you can't really do anything about it, but, you know, just make the best of what you got, I guess. But, you know, to go around saying that everyone is equal when there are inherent differences, even amongst, you know, whites, there are inherent differences, you know.
Again, anyone who just does this bare minimum level of fact-checking, looking at the front page of Cory McCarthy's website, clicking through, reading a little bit of the text there, or someone who watches the videos I have on my own channel where we're hearing it straight from his own mouth. We get to hear his own mood, his own anger. You know, even when he's claiming that he's not a racist because he doesn't feel hatred, what he has to say and the way he says it is genuinely hateful. That seething hatred comes across on the camera. And, you know, the total lack of any sincere humanitarian motive on their part. And whenever they make these concessions about how supposedly they respect other nationalities also, you're not trying to help the Navajo. You're not trying to help the Cree or the Ojibwe or the Mohawks. If you actually cared about genocide, if you actually cared about endangered and disappearing nationalities and languages and cultures, everything about your web presence would be dramatically different. Instead, what we see is this smokescreen of a kind of phony egalitarian nationalism, as if they regard the Navajo or the Israelis. I mean, how about Israeli nationalism? You know, as if they regard all of these claims to nationalism as equal. A smokescreen behind which there's an ideology that, as I say, it's in no way meaningfully different from white supremacism, in the same sense that a whites-only golf club or country club can't claim to be anything other than white supremacist just by the nature of its exclusivity, right? Sad. So look, guys, I kind of imagine this would be more of an upbeat video because the broader and deeper question is, whenever you work in a given field of study and you look around and feel like, well, is everyone here an idiot or is it just me? One of the most important factors to remember is that all of us have finite time, finite attention to detail, put it that way. We can only invest ourselves so much in caring about the details of any given topic. I use examples of this all the time. I say, look, I don't know about everything. I did research on Cambodia. I did research on Haiti at one time in my life. I've never done research on the history of Jamaica. From the little bits and pieces I've read, I'm sure it's fascinating. Political history of Jamaica, you know, any of these case studies, you know, but in general, when people step outside of their area of expertise, like Richard stepping outside of health sciences and fitness to take on these very thorny, very difficult issues in alt-right politics, I guess, I don't need any other term, when they do so, both with a much, much lower level of rigor and, to be blunt, when they do so with a sense of self-righteousness. It's a very, very bad combination. And even quite brilliant people end up looking like idiots.
À-bas-le-ciel.